Hey, what's up guys? This is Oakley and we're going to be doing a 4 versus 4 battle. No real theme to it. It's going to be a mix of different factions. And I do have the Rome Total War music mod activated, as well as another graphical mod. I can't remember which one it is, but you can start to see some of the pretty lights in the distance, so hopefully this will jazz up the combat a bit. Now, we do have a whole host of different players engaged in this fight. A lot of them who are good players from the Zeal clan, all sorts of players. I don't remember all of the particular players and which factions they were. I'll have to go over that in the end, but let's go ahead and kick this off. So this is going to be huge armies, and over on this right flank we've decided to mass a lot of our cavalry. At least I can tell you that I'm going to be Parthia fielding units over here, and so I'm going to have some archer components in the woods, Peltas here to back that force up. Then we're going to mass, as I said, a lot of these units with backup Persian hoplites to go and seize this flank and counter our opponents there. In the center, we're going to have some pretty... Let's go ahead and put this on slow motion, I guess. Put this on K. Yep, we have a whole line of archers and slingers and whatnot, various lines of infantry. The center is not really going to be the one to crack, so we know we have to go through the flanks first and foremost. Over here is going to be a huge, pretty massive combined army, and again, we're going to be taking the fight to the woods once more with some bow horsemen there. Not quite as cavalry heavy on this flank. Our opponents, on the other hand, do have Sparta holding up this position in the center. It's going to be pretty hard to push through with a lot of these hoplite forces. And so we're going to try and push more so, like I said, over here against the Swaby forces, who should be easier to take if we can wrestle the cavalry advantage away from them. However, they do have some of these, I believe, Chimerian forces right here, noble horse archers. His force in the center is not that strong. That's mostly because he has some more of his Picpeltas and more elite units distributed around the sides to help out his friends. So let's go ahead and just start to enjoy a little bit of the combat developing on the flanks. We'll try and slow motion pause this just so you get all the combat and enjoy some of the nice graphics. So you do see me play a good amount of these massive battles. I know you guys do like the themed ones. This was not that, unfortunately, but what it does bring that a lot of the other battles don't necessarily have is the fact that we're playing with a lot of skilled players, so you'll be seeing a good amount of micro despite the fact that this is really large armies. So here I am, I'm pushing forward, I'm darting around, and this is actually going very, very quickly, but we're getting just minor exchanges, a lot of swiveling about, both by these Germanic scout riders and then my own forces here. We have backed up with some mercenary Sarmatian lancers who are pretty cheap forces just to help reinforce my guys. I do have some noble blood cav or median cav just reinforcing this army, and so I'm just trying to escort my horse archers who can outrage my opponent's scout riders, and that's why the opponent's going to be bringing some noble horse archers. So let's watch some of this exchange as they go ahead and come charging into this. The scale of these battles is always something that I find just super fun, and I can't wait to have more of these in Attila. Look at that awesomeness. These guys are going to rein in their horses just as they see another line of heavily armed horses coming in from the distance. This is something you would have seen probably in cavalry, actual cavalry engagements out on the steppes, is these forces, even the Parthians as well, might as well note that, is charging forward, releasing your arrows, charging back out of range of the arrows you can see coming in from the distance, and this guy getting, yeah, that's kind of weird. But anyways, yeah, you would have seen a lot of this wheeling about, and especially forces that were capable or trained to have these Parthian shots would have definitely been doing a lot of this, and I'm using my Sarmatians in the front to really absorb this amount of firepower coming in, but that's fine. They're providing cover for my horse archers who are going to be galloping in the side. Look at this. Our sources do tell us that if you look at some of the steppe tribes, particularly the Huns or the Mongols, they would have trained almost from birth, or not from birth, from a very young age on the horse. And when we look at these horses that are galloping and you see the Parthian shot, they were trained to actually release the bow just as all 4 of the feet were off of the ground, and then you would basically exhale your breath and just have the perfect moment of stability, and so they would know just the right point in time to fire. And right here, what we're trying to do for having a little bit more tactical advantage over our opponent, who seems to have a lot of supporting forces here, especially with some Swaby spear walls and all that coming up on this side. What I've decided to do is take this force and I'm pushing over with some Persian hoplites. We have a lot of these horse archers ready to come in. Let's put this on play. What happened over here is I was sneaking through the forest, hoping to get up close into range and unleash some fire. However, our opponents did have a whiff that something was going on into the forest. They sent in their cavalry, and what they did is they found some of my peltas, and they were trying to chase after some of my elite Persian archers who were able to skedaddle out of there. I knew there was the potential for my forces to get overwhelmed, so what I did is I already had one of these Persian hoplites in the front to intercept the enemy citizen cav. And then what I brought was also mercenary peltasts. Peltasts are very good against cavalry. They're more heavily armored, especially in a bush like this when they don't get a full-on, cavalry assault right on their front. They can take these fights very, very well, especially with the disadvantages of the cavalry fighting in the brush. So we've been able to soak in basically 3 of these citizen cav units into the melee. Some of our own citizen cav are in the mix. We have a lot of our own forces getting in here. These swordsmen are probably also going to be throwing some of their javelins, and so we're just going to be all out massacring the forces that have been engaged in here. And that's what you want to do in these battles, is try and bait your opponent. We didn't quite mean to bait them, but by leaving some of my guys more vulnerable, you can see I really didn't take that many losses. However, our opponents are going to start. Oh, looks like they again reacted pretty well, scooting out that guy in time, but they are going to be sacrificing 2 of these citizen cav for basically nothing. They got 7 or so of my elite Persian archers, so that doesn't quite balance out, and it's forced these guys to retreat. Over in the center, it looks like this is mostly going to be a face-off. We are going to be scooting some of our cavalry over on that flank, because what happens with these types of engagements is once someone gets an edge, then the opponent is going to react and try and send in more forces to get their own edge. Means you have to send in additional forces to counter that, and it kind of creates a vortex that pulls everything in. So this is going to be the black hole that's going to be sucking a lot of the combat in on this side. And let's just go ahead and watch what's going on this flank just for the time being. We can put this on play. So similar moves being made, however the amount of cavalry is not quite as significant as you saw on the other side. We're going to be able to force these opponents back with our own cavalry. However, they're going to countercharge with some of their scutari, so we're going to be throwing away a noble horse into this fight, which should be enough to pin down these forces and allow for a good amount of suppressive fire of all these Celtic slingers into these weakly armed forces. They do have a lot of these units who could really all out throw all sorts of stuff at us, so it's a good thing we're tying them up and just making sure we secure this flank. A lot of bow horsemen lining up on the flanks to also provide supporting fire and allow us to retreat. So that is very awesome. We can see some of the slings doing their damage from a distance, and we have been forced to sacrifice 1 unit, which should probably go to the advantage of our opponents. But look at this, we do also have Celtic slingers who are now going to be getting some perfect flanking shots right into the side of these very, very lightly equipped forces. So a lot of trades going back and forth, and I think we are getting the best of it. Let's watch this kind of chew through this line here. Hitting spear units and other armed units in the flank is obviously the best way to go about it. So we can see the combat starting to develop over here. Let's go back on this flank, because this is definitely the most exciting. A lot of back and forth happening here with my own Persian hoplites pulled onto this side. They've finally made it in place, and this is something you need in these types of engagements, is something stable to hold back the opponents, keep them from flushing you out of the woods. I did go ahead and kind of throw my own Persian hoplites, these guys are really cheap, into the mix. I want to draw all the attention of the Spartan forces here, allow us to reform this flank, and my allies are telling me to draw this force back. I feel like they're already too far committed, so I'm going to try and do is force a reaction from these players, draw the Germanic slinger fire, but mostly just force all of these cavalry units back. And what that's going to allow us to do, clears up some breathing room for our forces here, our cavalry archers, to now go ahead and look at this, get some shots on to the flank of these Swaby forces who are going to be coming in against my lone unit of hoplites who are going to be turning around to face this. Let's watch actually some of these Swaby forces coming out of the brush and the forest. So some of my own Sarmatians, I decided to throw them into this fight just to slow down the barbarians. It looked like it's worked, but here, coming out of the woods, let's watch this from the perspective of some of our guys right through here. We do have some supporting fire from horsemen in the back going around the flank. And now we're going to form up into hoplite wall, brace for the assault of the Swaby forces who are going to be coming down all along the line. We're going to take that assault, and I can go ahead and put this on play, but it will go kind of rather fast. So I was able to tank that pretty heavily. It's going to mean my guys are going to get surrounded, but in hoplite formation they'll be able to take one of those guys. I have my other hoplite formation to stem reinforcements on that flank. My own Sarmatian lancers are going kind of crazy back here. They have 37 kills, not that much, but at least they're tying up a lot of those forces. And some of my own horse archers are trying to scoot around here, draw off some of these club levy and other cheap units who would otherwise surround my forces. And I'm trying to pull my guys out of here. Swaby has done a good job trying to penetrate my forces and tie up my guys. I really can't get around them. And look at this, they're going to keep massacring some of my horsemen. So a good envelopment tactic, trying to seize the territory here. However, I'm going to be able to get these Sarmatians really get a bang for my buck here, charge into the rear of these club levy and hopefully start to stabilize this. If these couple units can survive and draw the rest of the Suebi forces in, they're too isolated at this point and we'll get the best of them. Over here, none of the combat has quite developed just yet. It looks like we're going to be pushing forward. A lot of the archer fire is now going to be coming in, devastating the Spartan Gorgo skirmishers. They don't really have the arc of fire to return fire against us, plus we just have these heavy archers who have very good stats, so we're going to be crushing this formation, which means it's going to make room for our own hoplites to move up. And keep in mind, I do still have some reserve forces. These are going to be forces who can not only react to cavalry forces coming in through the back, but can also, you know, plug a gap in our own lines, because I was expecting that to happen. Over on this flank, we have an all-out kind of cavalry charge brawl into this mess. We can put this on play just so you can see a little bit of the chaos. Let's pan over this. We're throwing just a couple forces into the disarray that's going on here, and in the distance there are going to be some more of our horse archers. Take a look at that, going off in the distance, raiding around the sides, and they're going to be causing all sorts of chaos, seeing where they can strike decisively. Our opponents, however, are going to check this with their own cavalry in the back, heavily armored to keep us from penetrating the rear. Actually, I think we should be able to get around this. It looks like the Lusitani forces have kind of formed up in a way to try and keep our forces back. We're going to be deploying piecemeal, like I said, just trying to do the best, throwing a couple units everywhere to tie down this massive force, cavalry units in the back to keep them occupied, and then allow our forces to just unleash. That's a really good move against these especially light Lusitani forces. You'll be able to just melt those forces away. However, we're being stretched a little bit thin here, and look at this. We're going to be coming up against this Spartan shield wall. Not much you can do against this. Yes, we've killed the rest of their skirmisher base, but look at this. They've formed up into shield wall. They're going to be ready for the assault coming at them. Looks like they're going to be actually reforming. They want to get out of range of our missiles. We are now going to be targeting the Spartan general. A very good move. Let's see if some of those are going to actually come in. And even, you know, from the back, he's going to have a lot of armor and be able to tank that shot. They want to get further out of range and just kite and keep us back. Let's go ahead and put this on pause just before this is about to land. So what's happened over here is my forces in the woods have been mostly destroyed and routed, including the hoplite force there, who was finally surrounded. However, we were able to rally some of our noble horse archers to come back here and do cleanup operations on these now pretty depleted and exhausted groups of infantry. My own guys, mercenary peltas, have been thrown into the mix, and I've drawn out my reserves from this this area of the woods, pulled over here, and I'm thinking of deploying these guys. Over here I have some more Persian light archers. I'm saving their fire. It's important to keep units with more ammo to the end of the battle, so they're going to be waiting there. And then we can go ahead and deploy with swordsmen and hoplites to stem the assault of this very disorganized Suebi force. And yes, they're going to get a counter charge against our citizen cav. I'm going to go ahead and meet that with mercenary hoplites, and it's to cover my elite Persian archers here, who actually themselves can be equipped with spears, so they're going to be a pretty good counter to that. I do have my median cav engage with the citizen cav, as well as some mercenary peltas who I know can tank this type of combat. Going to throw in my swordsman right there and swordsman over here. Should be enough to clean up these Suebi forces. However, they have a huge component of slingers in the back, and that's why this long move of these bow horsemen are going to clean up not only the remainder of the Germanic scout riders, but also be able to relieve the pressure of the rear ranks. Suebi is going to realize that is a threat. They're going to fall back. Some of the Spartan forces are going to fall back. Let's go ahead and look at what's going on this flank. Looks like they've cleaned up our penetrations into the line, been able to reform because our cavalry was scooted around the side and kind of committed to this fight, this meat grinder. It looks like actually the edge is going to turn back against us slowly but surely. They're going to have cavalry superiority sweeping around the sides, and they're going to have their own skirmishing advantage to try and pick away at our forces. Gallo-Thracian infantry is pretty good, but I think our Celtic slingers are going to be almost out of ammo. Some of our forces here are going to be shuffling, sending guys onto the right. The Spartans we know are not going to be very mobile. That's okay. We're going to be pushing our forces forward. They have nothing really to respond to us, so it looks like we're going to be continuing to target the rural Spartans, trying to take out the general. You could say it's almost Leonidas, trying to take him out. Over here, the Suebi forces are going to be mostly crumbling. It looks like these bow horsemen have been able to sort of, they've been warded away by the scout riders here, and so we're going to be choosing a perhaps juicier target over on this front. Let's watch some of these Germanic slingers who are going to be getting their stones ready to throw into this mix, and it's just a brutal battle. More Suebi forces getting engaged against the Parthians. Some cavalry being thrown into the mix. But now back here, these are heavy archers. They've been going at it basically all battle long on this flank, getting a lot of kills. And with their armor, they'll be able to hold up to some slings and even have the mass necessary. Oh, wow. This is a lot happening. So Swaby has decided to do a kind of a big strike on our forces here. A lot of units shifting around the flanks. And yep, starting to use some of the general's abilities to get these guys going. They've got a lot of our forces tied up. However, we have a lot of archers in the rear, and we're waiting for exposed units, mostly tackling the club levy here. A lot of my swordsmen are going to be, pinned here, but these are pretty good, solid troops, and we're able to kill some of the citizen cav from the rear, pinned up against my forces. This front should hold pretty well. My archers, or my peltas, are going to crumble. However, I do have a hoplite unit that can keep any penetrations back, and then I have some reinforcements, my hillmen, pulled off from that position, as well as some of my own Persian light archers who I kept deployed over here. They're going to be now committing to this fight, and now we're going to be trying to clean up, what I want to do is keep my swordsmen alive, this big glob, because they can absorb a lot of Swaby forces. They're very good, and so I'm just going to be sure to clean up everything around them and just try and save them from a distance with all my archers. Let's look at this overlapping field of fire. Everything pouring on over here. Very, very hotly contested fight. Just look how many lines going around here. If you look on the right, you can see those cavalry charging in. That's going to be our opponents. They're doing everything they can to break that clump of infantry, while we're doing everything we can to relieve it. Swaby forces back here. Still, a lot of these slingers alive. They are keeping some swordmasters in the front. And now I am going to be moving some of my infantry closer to the fight. I'm waiting. I'm sensing an opportunity to maybe perhaps strike at the Spartans, who have been pretty heavily pinged by our own forces. We're now going to get them into a melee combat, and they probably should have stayed in a line, but we had just so many archers and slingers to commit to that fight. Even their general was taking a lot of damage, that they decided to just go out and try and pin us. The problem with that is it's going to leave all sorts of little gaps that we can go ahead and exploit, which is why I have my royal cataphracts moving up. Our own, yep, you can see them moving into this gap here. Our own archers decimating the Spartan line. On this flank, it looks like they're going to be having a pretty nice counteroffensive. A lot of these Balearic slingers just raking up the kills on our levy freemen. We did have a lot of numbers here, but most of them were pretty cheap units, and so the Iberian spears and swords are actually going to be enough to start cleaning up this front, and especially with the archer superiority that they have here, they're going to be tackling mostly the infantry here, and then cleaning up the rest of these forces with nicely timed Scutari charges. So it looks like this is mostly going to go to the opponent. The center right here is still sort of at a standstill. It looks like over here it's going to be kind of a standstill, mostly teetering on the precipice of us winning, especially with my own cataphracts moving into the fight slowly. You can put this on play. And a lot of our roving bull horsemen targeting specifically the enemy general. We're really out to kill him. We've been targeting him the entire battle. Some of the Gorgo skirmishers, however, have rallied, and they're going to be pinging our guys, trying to take them out. Over on this front, the melee engagement has come out favorably to my Parthian swordsmen. They've been able to weather the storm, and look at all the corpses littered around them. They've been able to survive and basically soak up all of these Swaby forces on this side. I even got some of my median cav who are still alive. How many kills do they have? 50, so that's pretty decent. They're going to be rejoining this cavalry blob that's been more of a supporting group, picking off the remainder of the club levy. We should be able to survive. Swordmasters are going to be trying to commit, but I have my reinforcement archers who I pulled out of the woods just for this particular moment to target high value units. And again, I'm continuing to be able to use these Swaby swordsmen who are somehow holding out against all odds, and just pull the swordsmasters in, expose their rear, and then just destroy them with all my archers. They're going to be countercharging with some of their own spear walls, but we have some median cav to countercharge that. Swaby is doing everything to break the front. We don't actually have too much to hold that back, especially with berserkers who can really cut through my mercenary hoplites. You can see their numbers dropping precipitously. We have to have something, so that's why we're going to be trying to break this. I'm throwing in my peltas. I need to hold back the Swaby on this front, otherwise they can swarm around here and force us back. My cataphracts are now going to be charging into the mix. I've got them in position. You can see a lot of Spartan forces have collapsed on our units, and now I'm going to be coming in, smashing into the woods on all flanks. And here comes my cavalry, and I am choosing to engage them right here between the two armies because I know I have to relieve some of my forces first. So here we go, we're going to be coming into this mess. Last thing the Swaby forces were expecting was a heavy cavalry charge when they were at the ends of their wits. So double charge for my guys, horses kicking, men slashing. It's going to be a pretty all-out massacre, and then I turn about with this guy and smash back into this, I believe, Swordmaster unit who's being buffed and has all sorts of things, but it's not going to be enough. The general is thrown into it, so I know I'm pulling a lot of the Suebi forces. They've been pretty much exhausted. I mean, they broke through our front lines, especially these berserkers, but we have enough units now, elite Persian archers, to turn against some of these guys. My swordsmen finally going down, and you can see some of them choking, being cut down by the Suebi forces who were tied up this entire time against them, and the opponents are going to be charging into a line of just archer fire. And some of the horse archers over on that flank are just so useful. They've been standing here basically the whole time, providing supporting fire. Elite Persians have been engaged, but they'll be able to hold this off, especially with the cavalry support nearby, who can engage in melee. Berserkers continuing to cut through my front lines. Let's watch some of this action. I'm going to be targeting everything against them, and yeah, it's going to result in some headshots here or there from my own guys, but we're going to do everything we can to clean up the remainder of these guys. So you can chalk that up to a victory over here. A couple straggler units are going to continue to chip away our forces, but we're going to be able to clean this up. My double cataphracts are pretty tired, but I do have the ability with my general to give me second wind, so I use it on him, and he's just going to be concerted effort to kill these swordmasters. The Spartans have been overwhelmed and slaughtered. Over on this side, like I said, it was going mostly to our opponents, so I have pulled back in 2 of my reserved swordsmen, engaging in this fight. Not so much engaging, but standing as a supporting position just to do as much spear and javelin damage as possible. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull back. I want to be able to safeguard our forces from the opponent's, troops. I want to salvage as much as possible. They are going to be running amok. These horse archers have 155 kills, so I want to save the rest of our archers. I know that these 2 swordsmen are not going to be enough to save the situation here, so what they're going to be doing is kind of allowing for the retreat of at least some of our forces back to the main line. So they're mostly going to be dealt with cleaning up these cavalry forces. Finally, they're going to be meeting their match and being silenced. Over here we have the rest of our forces now forming up, just a couple troops, here and there, still chasing after our guys. Swordmasters, 72 kills. We'll turn around and swat that away. And here come the rest of my guys. Yep, Royal Cataphracts are definitely doing very well for themselves already. Every man getting at least a kill or 2. Reforming the battle line. The opponents have enveloped our guys, but now it looks like the power meter has been relatively firmly in our side, so now it's going to be just a matter of resting up our troops, forming up, and preventing our opponents from running down the rest of our guys like this, the exposed forces, so at least we do have some more solid infantry to ward these guys away. So here's all that's left from our opponent. I did leave one of my swordsman units just to tire out the opponents. I figured they would be enough to deal with these Scythian hoplites who are not themselves too strong, and just buy time for the rest of the forces to line up. But let's look at just the, I like to do these late in the game battle pans of the entire, let's get a slow pan going, of the battlefield, just so you can see the sheer amount of carnage that was that ensued all along the front, especially over here where we had the surrounding of Spartans. That's where they went ahead and died, and just clusters all along this front, especially over here where I was trying to tie down. This is the remainder. This is the legacy of the Parthian swordsmen over here. This is what they were able to do. They died almost down to the last man, but they took out a lot of guys with them, which helped us secure this flank and finally turn the tide. Let's see what this looks like from the underside. It's always interesting to see with clumps of bodies like this. Oh my god. Yeah, literally can't go a couple steps without treading over a little man. Now we can watch the engagement. My own swordsmen are still kind of in this fight. They are going to be dwindling in numbers, especially with the Lusitanian nobles with double veterancy with already 200 kills. But it's fine. I have supporting fire from my Persian light archers. Finally pulled into this fight. That's why I kept them to the end of the battle, to have this late game effect, being able to sort of break the peltas of my opponent here. And our opponents are going to be moving in with some of their own nobles, but that's fine. I'm just going to pull back to the support of my own swordsman units, and we're going to have more reinforcements coming in along this front. So here we go, here comes the engagement, and I think if there's one unit we want to watch, let's probably watch some of these guys coming out of the woodwork. We can watch the entire army now coming out of the woods. Very, very epic indeed. Now they're going to be coming forward for a charge, and this is exactly what I need to flatten the remainder of the opponent's forces, who are pretty tired at this point. We're going to be rallying, sallying wherever we can, charging through the woods. The archer fire is going to be coming in for support. Peltas coming in. And we're going to be coming in, again, doing everything we can to save these Parthian swordsmen. Let's watch some of these guys ride down the remainder of the soft targets. Very easy going for them. So it's got to be very satisfying as we round up the remainder of our opponents. And you guys already know how this battle is going to go, so let's watch some of the cinematics. Actually, some of the kills on these guys: 101, my general 136. So yeah, like I said, just a matter of chasing down some of the soft targets. I have to say, all the players fought very, very bravely. Very fun battle. Definitely quick-paced battle for a type of game you see. I mean, it went, I think, 13-14 minutes. Probably longer in the commentary because we were on slow-mo. But the battle itself for 4 players, I mean, destroying each other in 13 minutes, that's pretty efficient. So once we got to the battle, it started going. This is probably going to be the last final cavalry charge into the Lusitani. Really, really cool. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this battle. We'll go ahead and look at some of the stats after this. But yeah, I do plan on having more of these. I think I've kind of settled into a bit of a routine for my channel. I have these massive battles that you guys seem to like. Take comments for you, what you like to see. I think you guys do like sieges. You like staged battles with themes. Then you like to see these high intensity battles like this. So it's massive battles and the odd number of just multiplayer replays and the history videos that hopefully I'll be able to bring more of them to you. And yeah, here you go. You can see everything, all the different stats from the players. So myself doing pretty well. Not super amounts of kills on any one unit besides perhaps my cataphracts. Mostly held my own. Zeal here doing pretty well. A lot of his noble horse archers, who I said were holding up the combat, did a good amount of damage. And these guys, Cimmerian heavy archers, he's got 7 of them. Those guys were definitely Spartan slayers. These guys, a lot of numbers, not quite the quality, but cavalry still doing their own. Archers, I think it was basically just a big archer fight. Yeah, look at noble horse archers getting a lot of kills as well. Swaby doing pretty well himself. Definitely killing a lot of my guys with the berserkers. Sparta, I would say, mostly got thrashed because the cavalry got sucked into that engagement in the woods. Gorgo skirmishers got targeted by our own heavy archers. And then after that, it was just spearmen who got surrounded. So he needed a lot more support. And after we took the flanks, that's when Sparta is going to fall, when they can't secure their flanks. And definitely the Lusitani, led by Vaude, BX Baracus, playing very, very well, getting a ton of kills, 257, 282, 270. Very, very fun battle. But anyways, yeah, I'll keep bringing the mix to you. I am working on a couple more documentaries. I kind of want to be hush-hush, but they do have to do with ramping up towards Attila, so I do have the script basically done for that. I'm working on recording the script and putting together some stuff, but it does require me having Attila, so hopefully I'll wait for more access from CA so I can do my own custom battles to stage the battle that I'm trying to recreate. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. That's enough rambling. I will see you guys next time.